From a distance, the world seems blue and green. Mhm. And the snow. It's still morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, guys. How is everybody doing this morning? I hope everybody's having a great morning. It is it is a day after Cyber Monday. People are shopping, people are doing all kinds of things. People who don't buy what you cannot afford to pay for. Okay? Just a word to the wise, which should be sufficient. But anywho, yesterday I started to continue the reading of the book. Hold on, the people, let me open this. Hold on there, my lovely people. Okay, my little cool breeze coming in. Let a little bit of cool breeze coming in on me, because I need it. I don't know me need it, right? I need a little touch of cool breeze. So, welcome into the live, guys. Welcome. Thank you all so much for coming. Look at my sister, Fly Girl, now. Fly Girl, what's up with you, my darling sister? How are you doing? Happy Tuesday to you, my love. Happy Tuesday to you. I hope you're having a great day, and I hope you're feeling better. Well, this book that I'm reading, The Atonement Child, a few it's been a few days that we hadn't read anything, and then yesterday I started to read a part of it that I thought was a little bit depressing. Maybe that's not what I should say, but that's what I said. But anyway, but today we are going to be continuing with the reading. Those of you who dropped in yesterday and heard the little piece of the reading that I did, I hope you all got the gist of what's going on with Dinah. Dinah is not having it easy at all. And I mean, nobody would have it easy if somebody violated you in that fashion. If somebody just came out of the blue in the middle of the night and assaulted you sexually, and then you end up being pregnant for that person. You never saw the person's face. You don't know who it is. And in Dinah's case, her mom is not just upset. Let me throw them in the air because the fan of fall. Her mom is not just upset that she's pregnant, but her mom also is concerned that the perpetrator may have been black. That kind of changed the whole dynamics of the story. But that's not what we are focusing on. We are focusing on the story itself and how we can use this lesson of what happened to Dinah in our own lives. If ever we are unfortunate enough to have that situation happen to us, or if there's anybody we know who this may have happened to, there are positive. Hold on, I'm gonna see clear pass. But in the story, it's not all negative. There are some positives in it that you could use to empower yourself, to help you or a loved one deal with a situation as devastating as this. So we are going to continue with the reading. Joseph, 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 no bother with me now this morning, because I told me did I drive. I never get to take you on this morning over the pantry now. I thought about you can't even angle one woman much more too. But you're ready to take on card along with me. Eh? You think me never see you? Me see you now. Me see you over there. Me see you. Yeah. But anyway, everything good for eat, good for talk. But don't trust no shadow after dark. What's up, Joe? How you doing? How you doing this blessed morning, my love? Good to see you. Good to see you. Yes, I'll continue reading this book about the atonement child, about Dinah and her predicament. So come with me, guys, and let us continue the reading. Her head was aching already, and it was only a little after 1. It would be pounding by 3. She wished she could have a martini or a shot of tequila. That would be nice. Anything to deaden the throbbing in her temples. And the truth I tell. Well, if you ask Cad nothing so. Yeah, cause she thinks you can manage. She couldn't depend on anyone. She had to oversee everything herself because she couldn't trust people to do what they said they would do. Dr. James Wyatt, for one. He'd say he'd be at the clinic at 1, then stroll in at 1:30. Or others did more than they were told, like Brenda, who answered questions with facts that scared clients right out in front of the open. 2 this morning. $600 gone. Stupid girl. Hearing the tentative tap on the door, Elizabeth controlled her temper. "Come in," she called, smiling coolly as Brenda entered. She gestured for Brenda to sit in the chair near the desk. Elizabeth looked her over, admiring her neat appearance. Brenda was an attractive young black woman, a nursing student from the University of California in San Francisco, who had come to inquire about working at the clinic 4 months ago. She had said she wanted to help women. Elizabeth had recognized her sincerity and knew it would be useful. She had also recognized her need: money to finish her education. Sitting forward in her leather chair, Elizabeth rested one hand lightly over her other on the burgundy ink blotter. "Phyllis said 2 of our clients left this morning after speaking with you." Elizabeth raised her brows when Brenda sat silent. "Is it true?" "Yes, they did," Brenda said, trying not to sound defensive. Phyllis had been furious when the second girl left and demanded to know what she was doing to drive them away. Brenda had told her she wasn't doing anything to drive anyone away, but Phyllis had been less than convinced. She hoped for a fair hearing with Elizabeth, who had always been cordial and firmly on the side of women's rights. Oh, that Queen Ice in the place. Queen Ice, what's up? How you doing, my darling sister? Good to see you. Good to see you. Happy Tuesday to you, my love. Happy Tuesday, my darling. They asked me specific questions about the procedure. Yes. And you answered yes, in detail, as few as possible. But they, Elizabeth held up her hands to stay the stream of self-defense. "You have been through our training," she said coolly, holding her anger under tight reins. Exploding at the girl would do no good, and it might leave her thinking that Elizabeth didn't care about these women too. Of course she cared. "You know what's appropriate and what's not, Brenda. The women who came here for our help are in a very delicate emotional state. They don't need facts. They need careful and gentle guidance. They want us to help them make the right decision." "I understand all of that," Brenda said, clearly distressed. "But the patient who came in this morning was in tears. She wasn't sure what she wanted when she came into the examination room." And so you decided for her? Elizabeth asked quietly. Of course not. I just answered her questions. What sort of questions? About fetal development. She said she was almost 4 months along. She asked if the baby had a heartbeat and brain waves. A friend had told her it did, but she didn't know for sure. So she asked me, and I told her the truth and made her feel ashamed. Elizabeth said angrily, that wasn't my intention. Perhaps not, but it was the direct result of your interference. So what have you caused? Did you help her? Was her boyfriend out there in the waiting room supporting her? Is he going to marry her? Is he even still in the picture? Is her family going to support her? How old was she? 14? 15? I don't know. What happens to her now that you have told her the truth? She left before we could talk about any of that, Brenda said miserably. Yes, she left, scared to death because of you. Brenda, dear, that's the reason we train you as we do. I thought you understood. I do understand, but a woman has a right to an informed decision. She wasn't a woman. She was a child in trouble and needing a way out. And we offered those services to her. Oh my God. Now what she's going to do? It would do no good whatsoever to tell Brenda that even the Supreme Court agreed that a woman didn't need to know very much, and in fact, agreed that the less they knew, the better. Seeing Brenda's shock at the outburst, Elizabeth sat back, forcing her anger under control. She let out her breath slowly, trying to remain calm. If that girl had wanted the sort of information you gave her, don't you think she would have gone to the pregnancy counseling rather than come to us? I don't know. She was very confused. She didn't know what to do. All the more reason for you to counsel her appropriately. Her telephone rang. Annoyed, Elizabeth picked up the receiver. Not now, Phyllis. I'm in a conference. It's Mr. Ord again. The heat of anger burst like a rush of adrenaline. Mr. Ord was their daughter's principal. Kip was probably in trouble again. How many times did she have to go through this before her daughter grew up? Ask him to hold for a moment, please. She slammed the receiver down and looked at Brenda. I have to be blunt this time, Brenda. We have covered this ground before, and I don't like going over and over things so important. So here it is. You either do things the way we trained you to do them, or you leave. Is that understood? Yes, ma'am. Elizabeth recognized the sparkle in Brenda's eyes, the zeal to help women in trouble. I know it's difficult, she said, taking a more soothing track. She didn't want to have to look for another nurse. They were getting harder and harder to find. Brenda, I know how much you care and I hire you in the first place. But you have to stifle your own personal feelings and think of what's best for these young girls. Put yourself in their position. How are they ever going to manage raising a child at this time in their lives? Pregnancy is a disaster for them, for their families, for everyone. We can help. We do help. Brenda sighed heavily. I know. I'm sorry. Fine, Elizabeth said, curbing her impatience. You can go back to work now. Just don't let it happen again. As soon as Brenda closed the door behind her, Elizabeth picked up the telephone again and punched the buttons, forcing a pleasantness to her tone as she spoke. Hello, Mr. Ord. What can I do for you today? I've had to suspend your daughter for drunkenness, Miss Chambers. I beg your pardon? I said I've just had to suspend your daughter for drunkenness. Drunkenness? There must be some mistake. No mistake, Miss Chambers. She reeks of beer. Mrs. Cavendish brought her to the office a few minutes ago after Kip vomited in the classroom. She's on a crying jag in the nurse's office as we speak. I don't know what you're talking about. Kip doesn't drink. And who is this Mrs. Cavendish, anyway? Mrs. Cavendish is your daughter's English teacher, he said stiffly. Oh, she said, face hot, resentment swelling. I forgot, and no wonder. This was the third private school Kip had gone to in the past 2 years. How was she supposed to keep track of all the teachers' names? Or why was her daughter doing this to her again? She's been out of control since she turned 13. Did Kip think word wouldn't spread? She'd end up right back in a public school again. And then, what chance would she have to be anything? She'd be lucky to learn to read or write. Your daughter needs counseling, Miss Chambers. She's had counseling. Psychiatrists and psychologists were always good at finding someone to blame. Mother, father, society. That was what was wrong with Kip. The girl was always blaming everyone else for her problems rather than dealing with them herself. What good did it do? Well, she was sick of it, sick of her own daughter. I'm sorry she's caused problems. I'll have someone pick her up right away. She'll call her ex-husband and tell him he could have his new wife pick her up. Bitterness mixed with resentment. Her ex was always so quick to tell her she was a lousy mother. Well, let's see how well he would deal with Kip. That wouldn't be necessary, Miss Chambers. If it wasn't necessary, why have you wasted time with the squall? Kip has made some accusations. Elizabeth froze. I beg your pardon? Accusations? Yes, I heard you. What sort of accusations has she made? She said you have struck her, not once, but several times. That's not true. She had disciplined her, sent her to her room, even shouted at her on occasion when pushed beyond the limit. But she had never struck her daughter. Not in the way he meant. I have never abused my daughter, Mr. Ord, and I resent your accusation. I didn't accuse you, Miss Chambers. Your daughter did. A seething rage filled Elizabeth. Of all the ingratitude, she had done everything she could do to make things right for Kip. And look where it got her. Fine, Mr. Ord. You tell my daughter she can call the youth authority. Do that for me, will you? If I'm such a lousy mother, perhaps she'll be happier in a foster home. She slammed down the telephone, and then someone tapped on the door. What is it? Phyllis struck her head in and grimaced. Sorry to disturb you. I just wanted to let you know that Dr. Wyatt is here. Good, she said, and glanced at her watch. 25 minutes late. That was $600 down the drain. Add that to the 2 clients Brenda had lost, and she had a $1,200 loss for the day. What she wouldn't give for another Dr. Franklin. Someone quick and efficient. Of course, he had his weaknesses too. Only yesterday, a young girl had become hysterical when Dr. Franklin began the procedure. He had told her to shut up. He had already begun, and it was too late now to stop. He told her she should have thought about things through before she walked in the door. Shuddering, Elizabeth stood. She had been forced to speak with him about it. He had been less than pleased at being called to account by a mere director. But she could not allow such insensitivity to pass. She understood he had been upset, but treated in that manner, the girl will tell others in her same situation to go somewhere else. She would seek help at another clinic if she found herself in the same situation again. And usually there was a next time. These young girls didn't learn by their mistakes. In fact, they often went right out and got themselves pregnant again within a few months. Clinic statistics bore the evidence. Though they dispersed birth control to the girls before they left, the girls either didn't bother taking it or took it inconsistently, increasing their chances of getting pregnant again. It was disheartening, often downright irritating. However, it was also profitable, and his behavior had been, quite frankly, bad for business. Elizabeth's mouth Elizabeth's mouth curved into a cynical half smile. She knew exactly which buttons to push to get Dr. Franklin working properly. His bedside manner this morning had been kindly, even soothing. Now for Dr. James Wyatt. Jim entered the supply room, removing his sport coat, and donned a blue paper overshirt from the shelf. He put his arms into it, so it tied at the back. "I hope nothing was wrong at your office this morning, Jim." A voice spoke from the doorway. He glanced at Elizabeth. "A walk-in? Emergency?" He sensed the frigid anger behind her sedate smile. "Two of our clients left this morning. This was her third pregnancy. Two have ended in miscarriages. It takes time to admit a patient to the hospital for observation." He didn't know why he was explaining himself. "I imagine your staff could have handled the details." "Possibly, but I take a personal interest when one of my patients is upset." She bristled. "Two of your patients were in great distress." Here, the weight frightened them away. "Or maybe they thought better of having an abortion." He said this so rigidly, knowing that response would not go over very well. He was right. Her eyes flashed with growing anger. "Perhaps," she said smoothly, then stepped into the room. Here's your check." She held it out to him. He frowned. He was bothered by the money side of his work at the clinic, and usually she considered that giving him his pay in an envelope. Apparently, she felt like reminding him he was no better than anyone else, maybe worse for his pretentiousness. He drew pay for his part in the business, just like she did, just like Dr. Franklin, just like Phyllis did, and just like Brenda and a half a dozen others did. Heat flooded Jim's face. He looked at her and felt a muscle jerk in his cheek. He wanted to tell her to stuff that check where the sun didn't shine, but he held his tongue. Establishing a practice was expensive. Malpractice insurance was a killer. What choice did he have? "I'll pick it up later," he said. "I'll just tuck it into your sports coat. How's that?" she said, mockery clear in her tones. "I said I'd pick it up later." He stepped past her and went out. He walked down the hallway to the first room and took the chart off the door rack. It was a brief form with the barest minimum of facts about the waiting patient. Stapled to it was a signed consent. He read everything. Sighing, he entered the room, scarcely glancing at the young girl on the table. "Is it going to hurt?" As little as possible," he said, smiling at her with what encouragement he could offer. She talked as he made swift preparations, fast words pouring out in her fear. He tried to put her at ease. She fell silent through the procedure, tensed up at the pain. One of the nurses took the basin from the room. When it was over, Jim stripped off his gloves and discarded them in the wastebasket. Everything had gone smoothly and swiftly. He was good at what he did. Thorough. Elizabeth always encouraged him to finish the procedure and move on to the next room, leaving one of the counselors to give instructions afterwards. But he didn't. Not today. He lingered, concerned, and spoke gently to the silent girl. He wanted to say something to make it easier on her, but he hadn't the words. "You'll be all right," he said, patting her arm. Turning her head slightly, she looked up at him. Looking into her eyes, Jim hurt. Worse, he remembered the newspaper article he had read that morning. Now, you all remember the newspaper article that he had read that morning about the young woman who had unalived herself? For those of you who were in the reading yesterday, you would have heard that part of the story that he had read in the newspaper, that a young woman on whom he had performed an abortion a few days earlier had unalived herself. Teresa, how are you doing, my darling Teresa? Good to see you. Good to see you, my love. I hope you're having a great morning. Let us continue. Dinah sat terrified in the clinic waiting room. Half a dozen girls sat in the chairs around the room, all with their backs against the wall. Dinah's mother sat beside her. She supposed she should be thankful for that, noting the others were by themselves. Yet she was torn. Was she doing the right thing? Was this the only way out? No one said anything. No one made eye contact. Her heart thumped wildly every time the door opened and another number was called. Each seat that was vacated was filled with another girl or woman who entered. All strangers, all closed into this private anguish. She was afraid she was going to be sick. "Mom, I don't know if I can do this," she whispered, trembling. Anna heard the fear in her daughter's voice and took her hand, holding it on her lap between both of hers. "Shh, it will be all right. I'll be with you the whole time." "I just don't know." "I won't force you, honey. I promise you. We'll talk to the counselor first, and then we'll see what will be done." Dinah looked into her mother's eyes and could say no more. She looked down, not wanting her mother to see how afraid she was. She was so afraid she had caused a breach to her parents and their marriage. "I suppose it's the only way. I don't know what else to do. Oh God, oh God, God, is this what I'm supposed to do? If it's right, then why do I feel this churning inside me and this gut-wrenching fear? I can't see my way out of this mess I'm in. It wasn't my fault, Lord. Why did it happen? Why?" Dinah fought down the tears. She knew would only add to her mother's distress. Anna felt her daughter's torment and shared it. "It will be all right," she said again, clinging to the hollow words, wanting to believe them. Her daughter wouldn't be alone the way she had been. She would have her mother to stand beside her, to hold her hand through it all, and love her afterwards. It would all turn out right in the end. Dinah wouldn't hurt the way she had, the way she did, and the way she still does. The door opened again, and a middle-aged woman in a white stood in the doorway. 28. "That's us," Anna said softly, rising, her daughter's hand firmly in her own. They were ushered into an examination room and joined there by a young black nurse who introduced herself as Brenda. Brenda read through the form Dinah had filled out, rechecking the data. Dinah asked her several questions and received vague responses. Though the young woman seemed increasingly uncomfortable, Dinah felt she had to persist. I need to know, Brenda. Won't you please tell me the truth? The young nurse stared at her as though caught in a dilemma. She remained silent for a moment, then shook her head. I think you might feel better after the procedure if you both spoke with the director. Miss Chambers will be able to reassure you. Would you like to speak with her? Please, Dinah said. Brenda went straight for Elizabeth. I have a young girl and her mother who would like to talk with you. I haven't the time for this, Elizabeth said, rubbing her temples. They've asked to speak with you, Brenda persisted. They have some questions they want answered. Elizabeth raised her head and glared at Brenda, who spread her hands. I'm sorry, Miss Chambers, but they're adamant. I'm afraid they'll leave if you don't talk with them. How far along? 4.5 months. Second trimester. That meant more money. What did you observe about them? The girl seems to be having difficulty accepting abortion as her option. And the mother? Supportive. She's holding her hand and telling her everything will be all right. Good. That would make it easier. All right then, I'll speak with them, but give me 10 minutes. I have a call I need to make first. As soon as Brenda closed the door, Elizabeth punched the auto dial for her ex-husband's office. His secretary didn't want to put her through. I don't care if he's in a meeting. You tell him it's an emergency concerning his daughter. Remind him her name is Kip. He came on within seconds, angry and wanting to know what was happening. She told him what the principal had said. So pick her up. Why bother me with this? Because she had made some absurd accusation that I'm abusing her. Are you? Of course not. We were married 10 years. You should know me better than that. No, you are right. You never threw a fist, but you threw words like grenades. She clenched her teeth, retaining tenuous control. Look, he said impatiently, I haven't got time for this. You're going to have to sort it out yourself, Liz. Today's meeting is important. We were in a break, or I wouldn't have been able to talk with you. Why should she be surprised? He had never cared enough to help her before. Why had she assumed he would jump in now, even if it involved his own daughter? What about your own wife, your new wife? Can she help? She said, trying to keep the edge of sarcasm from her voice and failing. Leslie hasn't got the time either. She's packing. Oh, she said with glowing sweetness. Is she leaving you too? No. We're taking a second honeymoon. She flies to Hawaii tomorrow to get our timeshare ready. I'm meeting her in Maui on Saturday. Second honeymoon? How nice. Her honeymoon had been spent in married housing on the UC Davis campus. She had spent 3 years putting him through college. He had never even taken her to Monterey during their 10-year marriage. She had sacrificed a great deal to help him attain his dreams. He had been too busy clawing his way to the top. Now that he was there, he could do as he pleased and forget his responsibilities towards her. A timeshare in Maui and a vacation. And where was she? Asking him would do no good. Leslie could take Kip with her. I could send someone to the house to pack her things. I don't think that's a good idea, Liz. Kip needs to face her own problems, not run away from them. You mean the way you do? He gave an unpleasant laugh. Same old Liz. She's our daughter, Brian. We both worked and planned and sacrificed to have her. I don't know what to do about... Look, he said harshly, cutting her off. This is going nowhere as usual. You wanted custody of Kip. You got it. You wanted everything your way. You got it. Now, you complain? Tough. You hear that, Liz? The court took your side. You got Kip and the exorbitant child support you demanded. I had to fight tooth and nail to get 2 lousy weekends a month to see my daughter. 7 years you have had it your way, and now you wonder why you have got problems? Well, don't think I'm going to step in now and fix the mess you have made. Fix it yourself. Click. Hurt and angry, Elizabeth slammed the telephone down. She sat for a moment fuming and then punched in the number for the private school. By the time she was passed from the school secretary to the principal's secretary to the principal, her temper was ragged, though controlled. I'm sorry, Mr. Ord, but Kip's father won't pick her up. He's busy getting ready for a vacation in Maui. She couldn't keep the bitter edge from her voice. What she resented most were the tears that burned her eyes. She thought she had gotten over the pain of their shattered relationship. It hurt to be used and discarded. As furious as she was at Kip, the thought of her daughter being taken away from her tore at her heart. Why was Kip doing this to her? Why was she so rebellious and hateful? She had provided her daughter with everything she needed. She had shown her love. She had shown she loved her by giving her everything she wanted. She had cuddled, nurtured, and counseled. Last year, when Kip had such a crush on that senior football player, hadn't Elizabeth put her on birth control so she didn't have to worry about getting pregnant? Hadn't she even purchased condoms for the boy so Kip wouldn't have to worry about contracting AIDS? Not once had she tried to stop Kip from trying to find happiness. And this is the thanks she got for understanding. It wasn't her fault that the boy had dumped Kip, or that a succession of other boys had come and gone since. She is recanting her story. Mr. Ord's quiet words broke into her frustrated thoughts. That's nice, considering it wasn't true in the first place. She seems very distressed and confused, Miss Chambers. You said she's drunk. It's more than that. Elizabeth glanced at her watch. She didn't have time for this. Brenda would be tapping on the door in a few minutes. If Kip thought she had problems, she ought to spend the day counseling girls in a family planning clinic. I know that, Mr. Ord. I'm doing the best I can. Can I send someone to pick her up? One of my staff? I could have her brought here to my office. There's no urgency at the moment, Miss Chambers. Kip's asleep right now in the nurse's office. An hour or two won't be a problem. She felt his hesitance, but decided not to question it. Good. I'll be there by 3. I'd like you to talk with the school counselor. Fine, I'll do that. And thank you, Mr. Ord. She hung up before he could say any more. With one problem settled, she felt better. She felt better able to face the next. Moments later, Brenda ushered in the mother and her daughter. Smiling warmly, Elizabeth sat at her desk, her hands folded on the blotter, and surveyed them with what she hoped was a friendly demeanor. She noted the mother's diamond studs immediately, although her wedding ring was a simple gold band, and on her other hand was a ring clustered with diamonds. Elizabeth noted other signs of affluence: French manicured nails, an expensive watch, designer pants and jacket, Italian shoes. The casual cut of her hair cost money to maintain. The daughter was blonde, blue-eyed, and lovely, the kind of daughter who could make it as a model. She wore an ankle-length floral skirt, a loose-fitting, hip-length white sweater over a pale apricot turtleneck. Fashionable clothing to hide an unwanted pregnancy. Elizabeth noticed something else in her swift appraisal of the girl, which brought understanding and pity. Around her slender neck was a gold chain and simple cross. There's the problem, Elizabeth thought, aware of the burden of guilt that religion would bring upon a girl. I'm Miss Chambers, the director of this facility. Won't you sit down, please? She said, indicating the two comfortable chairs. Reassuring a Christian, it was reassuring a Christian it was her legal right to have an abortion was not the way to set this girl's mind at ease, if that was her dilemma. The depth of her faith and conviction came into play, though Elizabeth doubted either was insurmountable. The girl was here after all. The first and greatest step had already been overcome. She had come through the door for help. Now she would need to help them overcome the foolishness they had probably been taught. Odds were good. They had been given the usual fundamentalist Christian hyperbole. Thankfully, she wasn't in such spiritual bondage. She attended a progressive neighborhood community church where others shared her convictions and applauded her work. She had learned that Satan was a myth, the Bible a collection of stories with symbolic rather than literal meaning. Sometimes I wonder why I choose the books that I choose to read for us, to us, with us. And even though I may not know what is guiding me into choosing these books, I'm going to say thanks to whatever entity it is that guides me into choosing the books that I choose. She had learned that that Satan was a myth, the Bible a collection of stories with symbolic rather than literal meanings. And hell didn't even exist. It was a concept dreamt up by religious leaders wanting to keep their flock under control. Fear was a strong motivation for being good. Now she was free of all that. She believed in God, and her God was merciful and loving and understanding. He made all men perfect, and no one was left out of heaven. Elizabeth had learned something else over the years too. It was always best to respond to religion rather than avoid it. I see you're a Christian, she said, directing her words to the girl. She smiled. So am I. Anna relaxed, letting out her breath slowly. If the woman was a Christian, she would understand how difficult this was. She would also tell the truth. Surprised, Dinah didn't know what to say. The attractive woman sitting behind the desk was far from what she had expected. She had been led to believe everyone who worked in an abortion clinic was some kind of monster. She supposed it was foolish and childish to think they would look that way as well. The director smiled again. Brenda said you have some concerns. I want to set your mind at rest. I assure you, the procedure is quite quick and simple. You'll feel very little discomfort. We'll want to keep you here about an hour afterwards. Your mother can stay with you, of course. Within a few days, this will all be behind you, and you won't even have to think about it again. Okay. Hannah pressed her back into the chair, her stomach clenching. Simple, quick, little pain, easily forgotten. Apparently, a lot had changed. Do you use some sort of anesthetic? No, unless your daughter requests it. That's an additional expense, of course. $100. She looked Dinah over once again. You are not far enough along to need that sort of assistance. Anna had only been 2 months along, but she remembered the excruciating pain quite clearly. I'd like Dinah to have something. As you wish, if money is not the problem. We can give Dinah something before the procedure and something to take home afterwards. Anna didn't care about the money. I don't want Dinah to feel anything. Fine, we'll see to that. Dinah's heart took a hard gallop when she saw Miss Chambers reach out to press a button on the telephone. I'm still not sure I want to do this. The director paused, then took her hand away from the intercom. She leaned forward, resting her arms on the desk. The longer you wait, the more difficult it will be on you and the more costly to your mother. I know this is a difficult decision, Dinah, but sometimes we have to do what's necessary. Have you ever had an abortion? Dinah said, before she thought better of such a personal query. Miss Chambers leaned back slightly, studying her, an odd look in her eyes. Clearly, she had not expected such a question, nor was she pleased by it. Dinah blushed. I don't mean to be so personal, she said, seeing how the woman's eyes narrowed in self-defense. She wondered how she had dared blurted out such an intrusive question. I'm sorry, I just need to talk with someone who knows what it's like. Anna looked at her daughter. The director's features relaxed. So what you're hoping for is reassurance from someone who has been through an abortion. Then, yes, if it will be of help to you to know this. I had an abortion when I was 24. Her mouth curved sadly. I was putting my husband through college. We were poor, so poor we could barely make the rent. A baby was out of the question. Fortunately, I had a husband who supported me in my decision. And later, Dinah said softly. Later, the director said, perplexed. Did you have any complications? Miscarriages? That sort of thing? The woman's The woman's smile was filled with pity. I see you have been misinformed. I, sh- I assure you there are no ill effects from having an abortion. You won't have any problem getting pregnant again when the time is right and you are ready. Anna lowered her head, wondering if she was the only one who had suffered infertility, miscarriages, and years of depression. Was she the only one who dreamed about the child she aborted? Miss Chambers seemed to sense Anna's distress and responded to it. Sometimes we have to make very difficult decisions. Had I not terminated my pregnancy, my husband wouldn't have finished his education. He wouldn't have been able to provide for us in the way he has. She turned the picture on her desk to add to her arguments. As you can see, I have a lovely daughter. Her name is Kip. My husband and I planned for her. She has been a wonderful blessing to both of us. Dinah looked at the picture. In it was a man, handsome and well-dressed, standing beside the woman who sat before her now, and a young girl. Her hands rested on their shoulders, and they were all smiling happily. It would seem life could be built upon a foundation of death. Dinah began to tremble inside for no reason she could fathom. She felt trapped, with her mother on one side, her father behind her, Ethan and Janet and Dinah Benathi all around her, pushing and pressing her towards the end. And now, here sat this woman who had gone through it, her life intact, saying it would make her a better future. Wow. There we go. There we have it. That is the end of. No, not there. Let me finish this part. Miss Chambers studied for a moment, then seemed to make a decision. Why don't you and your mother talk it over? She stood and came around the desk. We have a room where you can have some privacy. The director put her arm around Dinah as she ushered her towards the corridor. I know how scary this is for you. I've been through it. It's difficult to put our families ahead of ourselves. Someone will be with you every moment. Someone will be with you every moment, Dinah. I promise you, you are not alone. We are here to help you. All right? That's going to be the end of the reading of that part of the book for today. When we come back tomorrow, we will continue with the reading of the book, The Atonement Child. And we will see, hopefully, what Dinah has decided to do about her pregnancy. So thanks everybody. So thanks to everybody who came into the live. I sincerely appreciate you all. So those of you who commented and those of you who hit the like button, I sincerely appreciate you all. Thanks to everyone. Thanks to everyone again for coming. And I hope you continue to listen to the story and continue to enjoy the reading as much as I enjoy bringing it to you. That's going to be it from me for today, my friends. Until next time, this is Trev from Trevessence, where your journey matters. Have yourselves a great afternoon, guys. And I will see you all later.